This week on Vice, journalism under attack on the streets of Manila.
Wala pong ibang hangad ang ating presidente Rodrigo Roa Duterte, kundi linisin ang Pilipinas.
We haven't been at this crime scene for 5 minutes, and already we're getting a call that there's been another killing in Manila.
And then turning the tide against extinction in the Congo.
The closer the babies get, the more uncomfortable the silverback gets.
A big part of the problem isn't just the forest destruction, it's also the effect it has on stability in the region.
Go, go, go.
We are not ready for it!
Freedom of the press is under fire in America, with the new president and his administration openly undermining both the legitimacy and the value of media.
They so poison the minds of people by writing false stories. They are the enemy of the people.
Now, an independent and unrestricted press is the very bedrock of a free and democratic society. To learn more about where press freedom stands here and around the world, we spoke with legendary journalist Carl Bernstein, whose Pulitzer Prize-winning reporting on the Watergate scandal toppled a corrupt administration, leading to President Nixon's resignation.
That I welcome this kind of examination because people have got to know whether or not their president's a crook. Well, I'm not a crook.
You broke one of the biggest stories in our country's history. How has the climate to practice journalism changed since that time?
It is toxic today. We're in a state of a kind of cultural civic war in this country.
So much of the media is opposition party. Absolute dishonest, absolute scum. Remember that, scum. Scum.
What is similar, incidentally, between Watergate and what we see now is that President Nixon tried to make the conduct of the press the issue in Watergate instead of the conduct of the president and his men. Trump is doing exactly the same, but in a much more aggressive, inhibiting way than Nixon ever did.
The press is the enemy. The press is the enemy. The press is the enemy. Never forget it.
What is the state of press freedom globally?
Under attack. Press freedom is under attack partly because those who hold power increasingly are authoritarian.
President Trump's attacks on the press pale in comparison to a global war on journalism where authoritarian regimes threaten and imprison reporters.
If you cut off the flow of free information and the best obtainable version of the truth, these people are going to stay in power. It's not an accident that in the Philippines, you see what is happening.
To understand what happens when freedom of the press is under attack by a government, we look to the Philippines, which is the single deadliest place to be a journalist outside of war zones, Iraq and Syria.
Just because you are a journalist, you are not exempted from assassination. If you are a son of a bitch, hindi na madala ng free speech yan, ina.
The country's president, Rodrigo Duterte, is waging a war on the media while simultaneously executing a ruthless war on drugs that's left thousands dead in the streets. We followed one reporter in Manila covering the drug war.
We're at the Manila Police Headquarters to meet up with a journalist named A. Balatasi. She works the night beat here, so we're going to join her tonight.
Anyone who wants to do night crawling, they hang out here. In the mornings, it's just like full of laptops, full of reporters doing their daily grind stuff.
And so what's the plan tonight?
Every night, someone dies. You just have to wait. Meron daw tayong patay sa may napindan.
They just got a call that there's at least one person who is killed. It's an hour away, and they say if you wait that long, it's very possible that the body's going to be taken away by then.
It's widely believed that President Duterte orders the police to kill suspected drug dealers and users indiscriminately, so journalists race to investigate the crime scenes before all evidence is removed.
Drive so fast.
Manong saan? Saan ho? So they were able to get the body already?
They got it already.
Yeah. Salamat. Ano po pangalan ng biktima natin, sir? Yeah.
Alias yan. Ano po bang alias? Heart. Heart.
Heart?
Heart. Nakarinig na ako ng 2 putok. Nakakuhan siya, nakamas.
Okay.
Pagbalik ko, nakita ko nakabulagta na yung tao.
This killing fit the profile of most extrajudicial killings being executed in the Philippines.
Was he on any kind of official list as a drug user or a drug dealer?
Is on their watch list as a user. Most people who were killed by an unidentified gunman, usually wearing black jackets, face masks, it's a template. Yeah.
Hart's murder fit the template of countless others. First, the government puts the victim on a watch list, and soon after, they're gunned down.
My campaign against drug will not stop until the last drug lord are...
Since Duterte took office in 2016, around 9,000 people have been brutally murdered in the streets without trial. Many of them are executed by assassins working with the police as part of their crackdown on drugs. This means that it's often the journalists themselves who are left trying to investigate the cases. We followed A as she continued her reporting.
We're going to Elena de Chavez's house, the mother of Hart de Chavez, or Ron de Chavez, because he's a trans. Okay. Yeah.
Ko si Hart, tulog na siya nung time na yun. Pinasok nga rin yung bahay, bigla ang pinasok. Tama nyo dito eh. 45 ginamit sa kanya.
Hart's sister insisted it was the police who pulled her from their home and shot her as part of their war on drugs, a common claim among witnesses.
Isipin nila yung ginagawa nilang extrajudicial, na sana isipin nila may pamilya din yan.
Each night that we followed A, calls poured in from across the city.
Sir, itatanong ko lang kasi parang di ba kailan lang meron dito?
50? Wala pa sigurong 100 meters away from it.
We haven't been at this crime scene for 5 minutes, and already we're getting a call that there's been another killing in Manila, so we're gonna head back there right now.
Excuse me po.
So pagdating nga dito ng pulis natin ay pinutukan kaagad siya. Pumutok to bago pa kaya napilitan magpaputok na rin yung pulis.
Napitikan nila wala pong baril sa suspect. Ngayon may baril.
It quickly became clear that the story the police told A didn't match what witnesses around us were reporting at the crime scene.
So apparently the computer store around the corner took a photo of the victim, of the body, and there wasn't a gun there. And now, of course, there's a gun there. So A's going with him to see if it's true.
Brother, meron ka bang ganitong shot yung nandun siya sa labas ng linya? Pagparehuin lang natin.
One photo is of before the cops swarmed the body, and there was no gun apparently in the victim's hand. And then after the cops had all gathered there, and there was a gun.
Despite the photos, A said they were too low quality to publish as evidence. In fact, she didn't publish the story at all, likely due to a culture of fear among reporters, which often leads to self-censorship. Investigative journalists have endured a long history of violence in the Philippines. Not only have there been more deaths of journalists here than anywhere outside of war zones, in 2009, the largest massacre of reporters in world history was committed here. 32 were killed, and to date, there have been no convictions. Melinda Quintos de Jesus has been a journalist in the Philippines for more than 30 years. She explained why journalists here often self-censor.
What are some of the statistics that convey how dangerous it is to be a journalist in the Philippines?
A total of 154 journalists counted since 1986 have been killed because of the work that they do.
In general, are these murders of journalists ever investigated? Is anyone ever convicted?
So we've had 2 convictions.
Only 2?
Only 2 clear convictions.
What happens when a journalist attacks Duterte or calls him out?
They can expect to have a barrage of threats, questioning the legitimacy of all mainstream media. But worse, they have gone as far as basically saying, we know where you live, we know where your family is.
In our short time in the Philippines, we saw killings happen each night, but reporters continued to cover the crimes despite working under threat of execution by their own president.
The body's still here. Oh my God. Wow. Have other people been killed like this around here?
Last night, 3 na magkakasunod na patay ang 3 tao.
And now they're searching the body to see if he has any drugs or anything on him. So far, they haven't found any drugs.
We met with Peter Buchart, who believes that threats against journalists here are as real as the threats against drug users.
He was just sitting here and another motorcycle came by and shot him twice in the face.
What is your sense of who the assailants were and why this guy was killed?
My first suspect would be the police.
Why do journalists here self-censor? I mean, what's the danger in reporting more than what they do?
When the president says just because the journalist doesn't protect you from being assassinated, he means it. You know, if you go after one of the most prominent congresswomen in this country and tell her that she's going to rot in jail for investigating these killings, ordinary journalists are going to be very afraid.
Peter was referring to Senator Leila de Lima, who launched an investigation into extrajudicial killings when Duterte was the mayor of Davao City.
Ganyan ang pinapatay namin araw-araw, pinapatay namin. Inutos ka mo ni Mayor Duterte.
The criticism did not go unnoticed by Duterte, who lashed out against de Lima publicly.
Well, if I were de Lima, ladies and gentlemen, I'll hang myself.
We've been to a few crime scenes this week, and we've seen, what they look like. And these cases mirror one another, at least in our experience. Who are these assailants?
This could only be members of death squads. The president keeps on saying that up to the last day of his term, killings would continue. It's plain and simple murder, which is against our law. How much more can the public willing to take? Can we take 100,000? Can we take 1 million? The general populace seems now to accept the killings because of the persistent and continued propaganda.
With his propaganda machine running so successfully, Duterte has an approval rating of nearly 80%. One of his strategies is to turn government officials, like the chief of police, into celebrities.
PNP Chief Ronald Bato de la Rosa! Kung kailangan mo ang kausap, kung kailangan mo ng karamay, at kung kailangan mo ako, darating. Kayong lahat ay susuporta sa ating war on drugs. Wala pong ibang hangad ang ating Presidenteng Rodrigo Roa Duterte, kundi linisin ang Pilipinas. Hindi mo kailangan maging drogista para maging rakista. Di ba?
While the public continues to celebrate Duterte's war on drugs, just weeks after we left the Philippines, his police force arrested his #1 critic. Senator De Lima was arrested in February of 2017 on drug charges, accusations she says are completely baseless.
Ninanais ko muna po na umuwi muna para makapiling ko na muna po ang aking pamilya.
With Duterte's strongest opposition now behind bars, the importance of local journalism is more pressing than ever.
What's at stake if a government threatens reporters, silences them, intimidates them to the point of self-censorship?
I think there always have been threats to the press to varying degrees. Often, those threats can threaten journalists' lives. Once you start to close down that ability to present information that the government or others might find unpalatable, that is the slippery slope. For people to make informed decisions about their own lives, we need truthful, fact-based information, and only a free press can do that. Obstructing a free press is the first step toward tyranny.
Over the last 2 decades, the guerrilla population in the Democratic Republic of Congo was in danger of disappearing. Today, however, they're on the verge of a remarkable comeback. Ben Anderson has been covering the story for years, and he returned to the DRC to see what's being done to stop this slide towards extinction.
Hey, look, when you say their name.
Yeah, I'm like their mother. If they go there inside, all of them, they like to jump on my back, to play with me. Yeah, we are good friends. Yeah.
At the Rangers' headquarters in eastern Congo, there is a gorilla orphanage. Andre Borma has been protecting the gorillas for almost 20 years.
In 2007, we had gorilla massacre. The first gorilla who was killed, it was Lakasi's mother.
The biggest one?
Yeah. After 1 month, we had a second baby. It was Ndeze. Maisha is another, the oldest gorilla. She is a boss.
Baby gorillas fetch a huge price on the black market, and poachers have killed entire families to capture just one of them. Poaching had contributed to a dwindling population, which many feared could lead to extinction. How do you feel seeing them inside an enclosure like this?
It's not good because they are not in their natural habitat. But we are providing our effort so that one day they can be like other gorillas in the forest. Virunga will be alive forever.
Virunga is one of Africa's most biodiverse national parks, home to a quarter of the critically endangered mountain gorillas. The rangers here risk their lives to protect them. So I stumbled across a graveyard just like this 13 or 14 years ago. This is for rangers who have been killed, and back then 1 in 7 rangers had been killed doing their job. I came back 10 years ago and actually put me through that whole training program and made me become a kind of honorary advanced force ranger. I got a green beret and a jacket, went out patrol with them. And back then it looked bleak. It looked like they were fighting a losing battle and that the hippos and gorillas we were seeing could be the last ones here because there were so many rebels and so few rangers. And the world just wasn't paying attention. So I always wanted to come back to show what heroes these rangers are. And they still face serious physical danger because there are still loads of armed groups within the park. Over 150 rangers have died protecting the park. 5 more were killed by rebels just 2 weeks ago. But now the park itself is under threat. Illegal charcoal production one of the rebels' main sources of income, has caused mass deforestation and presents a new threat to the wildlife here. Innocent Buranwe leads armed patrols looking for illegal charcoal producers.
Contrôler, et s'il y aura des fours, on va les détruire. Il ne faut pas chuchoter, il ne faut pas parloter pour que les braconniers puissent nous entendre.
Within a few kilometers of their base, the rangers hear the sound of the trees being chopped.
By the sounds, there is some people who are cutting trees. So it means that they are cutting trees for just making charcoal.
Can you hear it? Very, very close. The poachers escaped.
You can see that this place has been invaded by poachers. You can hear some voices. That is the one who ran away. Then he's warning his colleagues. They cut trees like that one, then they start carrying, then they come like here. And after 1 week, you'll find the charcoal has been formed. He's supposed to cut about 50 trees.
Charcoal is made by chopping down trees and slowly burning them in an easily assembled kiln. It's then transported out of the forest and sold to the nearly 4 million people who live around the park. For the rebels, it's a hugely lucrative business. Another kiln, and you can still smell the burning wood, so I think this is very recently used. This just shows how widespread it is, and this is right under the noses of the rangers. Big area's been cleared.
Yeah, this place is empty.
So another kiln. This may not look like much, but thousands of people are doing this across the park. Some people think the value of this trade is $35 million a year. So that gives you a sense of how much damage is being done. Charcoal production has destroyed at least 30,000 square kilometers of forest in Africa. To see the scope of this deforestation, we flew with the head of Virunga, a Belgian prince named Emmanuel de Moreau, who took over in 2008.
That's actually a known FDLR position. Now we're going to get to about 1,500 feet, and then we can fly over it.
Out of shooting range?
Yeah, it would be safer. You've got some charcoal burning just there. A big part of the problem isn't just the forest destruction, it's also the effect it has on stability and peace in the region. It's one of the main incentives for war. It's these illegal armed groups, these militias, that are essentially funded by the trafficking of illegally acquired natural resources, of which one of the most important is charcoal. I mean, it's enough to supply over 1 million people with fuel. And it's a very, very complex problem because those people need fuel. You know, without it they can't cook their food, and they need it for their health because they need to sterilize the water they drink. We can't deprive them of domestic fuel. It would create a humanitarian disaster.
Emmanuel's solution is to completely reinvent the local economy. Central to this is the construction of 8 hydroelectric plants that will provide cheap power to the entire population here, using Virunga's own natural resources to end the deforestation that is causing such devastation.
Virunga National Park can create between 100 and 120 megawatts. That's 20 times what the whole city of Goma, a city of 1 million people, is getting at the moment. You know, with the electricity that can be generated from Virunga, we can create between 80 and 120,000 jobs in the province.
The Congolese military, the UN peacekeeping forces, the biggest in the world, haven't been able to defeat the rebel groups militarily, but you think you could just make them choose to stop fighting because there's a better alternative for them?
You know, they're here to make money. Until you provide an alternative, you're not going to resolve the conflict.
But in the short term, you're removing a large source of income for those armed group, so you're making some serious enemies.
Well, you know, it's not a popularity contest. That's true.
That's an understatement. Emmanuel was shot 4 times immediately after filing a complaint against an oil company exploring the park. He was lucky to survive.
So each one of these turbines will produce more electricity than the whole city of Goma is getting at the moment. So it really is, it's a huge transformation for the area.
Congo remains one of the most violent places on Earth, but there are real signs of progress here. Thanks to the efforts of the rangers, the long-endangered species that live here could actually survive. At another park ranger headquarters, at Kahuzi-Biega, I found the man who trained me 11 years ago, Eli Mundima. Ah! How are you? Good to see you again.
How are you?
How are you? Good to see you. He took me out on patrol to see how the gorilla population has fared since I was last here.
You will see gorillas. Maybe. Let's continue.
You promised last time and you kept your promise. 11 years ago, we found a lone silverback gorilla. This time, Ellie showed me something that would have been unimaginable back then. Incredible. Babies keep wanting to get closer and come and say hello. But the closer the babies get, the more uncomfortable the silverback gets. He's making eye contact, so I'm having to look away. Back in 2006, it looked like maybe the gorillas were finished. Maybe they would be gone in a few years' time.
Because of training, they train rangers. Now, those rangers who are well trained, they are protect gorillas. The number of gorillas is growing up. That's the reason why we meet in this family, this big family.
To see 12.
Yeah, you've counted them, I think.
12,
yeah. The whole family.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
It makes me want to be a ranger again.
Of course.
There were less than 700 mountain gorillas left in the world when I was here in 2006. Now, there are approximately 1,000. This progress is remarkable. And although the gorillas are still endangered, it looks, for the first time in a long time, as if there is a good chance it will continue. You can't hear me?
To make a wave. Good.
Very good.